Okay. Okay. So, hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. I think everybody here knows who I am. I am Julie, but if you're watching the recording, you don't know who I am. I am Julie, the founder and owner of the Healthy Habits for Women online fitness program. And I'm super excited tonight to have our a guest speaker, Gentry Manley, who is the director of Prestige Labs. And she is recognized as an expert in women's health. And she's going to share with us her expertise in nutrition, hormone optimization, peptide therapy, and just overall her expertise in lifestyle intervention for sustained wellness. So thank you so much, Gentry, for taking time out of your busy, busy day
Oh yeah.
to share with us. I know everybody in our community is super excited and has lots of questions for you at the end of this presentation and is absolutely looking forward to this presentation on hormones and weight
Yes.
loss. So
Well, thank
I'm
you
going to
so
let you
much.
take over. Mhm.
Yeah, thank you so much. And what a warm welcome. And I can assure you, as much as you guys have been looking forward to this, I have also been looking forward to this. And this is not the first or the 10th or the 20th time I've done something like this before. Like I told you, I've ran webinars, and for those that were on here at first, I've meant to record them and then lost them. So lots of experience doing this, but I love being able to connect and really just talk, educate, and raise awareness on topics that the one we're going over today is extra near and dear to my heart because it's really just one of those topics still to this day that doesn't get enough love. And I said I was going to share my screen, but let me not start talking and forget to share my screen. One second here. Whoops. There we go. All right. So that being said, we are going to be talking about the hidden connection between hormones and weight loss. So when you probably first heard that title, you might be thinking, that sounds like something I'm interested in, perhaps, because there certainly seems to be a hidden connection. And my goal, in short, is to hopefully make some of this not so hidden and also make you very aware of, like she said, lifestyle interventions, other interventions and approaches that we can take to overcome a lot of the issues here that many of you maybe have been told or maybe think right now that, well, this is just part of aging, and this is just part of where I am in life. This is just part of what my hormones are going to do. And that's just that. And so I do first want to go over what we're going to be covering today, just an overview. We're going to be talking about a lot: hormone health importance, having a better understanding of just female physiology in general, stress and cortisol, which is my favorite topic. And I say that a little bit sarcastically, but in all seriousness, it is my favorite topic because this is such a critical part of everything that we're going to be going over. Overview of female sex hormones, and hopefully in a way that is not quite so the obvious, more so uh, connecting to everything else we're going to be talking about: ovarian hormones, perimenopause, menopause. We're going to touch on hormonal birth control a little bit because I've honestly tried to do this type of presentation before without talking about it, and I can't. Okay. So I have to at least add that in there because it helps explain a little bit about what hormones are doing. And then, of course, near the end, we are going to discuss more and throughout breaking these plateaus, proper nutrition and supplementation. And I will say we are going to do a really exciting raffle and giveaway at the end, and another exciting announcement. So I don't think that anyone's going to be dropping off of this call, but I will say I definitely want you to stay all the way through for sure because the end is really my favorite part. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into it. First things first, these are some important truths and goals for today. Number one, Hormone imbalances and fluctuations can and will affect your weight loss results, but we are not at their mercy. Okay, can we accept that? All right. We must not make hormone imbalances the scapegoat for why our progress is slow. It can be part of the reason, but we can't use that as our crutch, okay? Understand the tools you have in your toolbox and use them. And we're going to be talking about tools. I'm very passionate about different tools we can use and all different areas to help improve these things that are just not common knowledge yet, but that's part of my life's mission is help make this common knowledge. This is the place for questions, by the way. Support in your community is everything. So if I end up feeling like I'm just talking, and then I see you guys just not communicating, it's going to make me sad because honestly, I love hearing you guys. Don't wait. Don't feel like you're going to interrupt. Drop a question in the chat, and I will get to those. I mean, I will stay on here as late as I need to, honestly. I want to make sure everyone gets their questions answered, and this is the space to do it because I don't like particularly just talking at people. I like it to be a very engaging conversation, okay? And another goal is we're going to gain context on how to ensure you are focusing on what is in your control and not stressing over what is not in your control. That make sense? Does that sound pretty good? All right. Oh yeah, quick heads up. I have been known to throw out a few corny jokes during my talks. So if you catch yourself laughing, I'll just assume it's with me and not at me, but either way, I'm good with it, okay? Is that good? The worst thing is if there's no laughing, because then I know. So if you're like, is she joking? Just go with it, okay? Now, this is probably my favorite quote. If someone had to say, what quote just embodies everything that you really believe in about, my philosophy and approach with health and wellness? And it would be this: a healthy body is a responsive body. I did not come up with this. One of my mentors early on, he's a functional medicine practitioner. And I won't get into my whole backstory because that could be a whole nother webinar. And maybe it will be for you ladies sometime. But basically, I went through things early on, and I'm only 34 years old. This was several years ago where I went through a lot of hormonal things and stress was the culprit. And long story short, I was trying to figure out why was my body trying to force itself to go through perimenopause at the age of 26. Okay. So I saw a functional practitioner. It ended up being a blessing in disguise, which a lot of things end up being, right? And he was one of the first ones to really teach me a lot of what I know now, but he told me this, and he was explaining things about how, talking about the root cause of things and how everything in the body is just intertwined, interconnected together. And he said, Gentry, a healthy body is a responsive body. Because I was like, well, no matter what I do, like my diet's not working, like my body's not responding how it always has. And I was like, holy moly, that is true. I was like, wherever you're going with this, I'm following you because that makes complete sense to me. So I'm not real big on reading all of the wordiness of the slides, but I did put this here because you guys are going to have access to these slides afterwards, by the way. So if you want to jot down notes, you can, but everything on here you'll have access to, just a side note. But why is hormonal health important? This may or may not be obvious. So I don't want to assume anything here. Hormonal health is everything, okay? Helps to regulate the menstrual cycle, reproductive health, your metabolism, weight management, which is a huge reason why we're here. Fat distribution, estrogen affects that, where the body stores body fat. Changes in estrogen level, especially approaching menopause, perimenopause, things of that nature. Stress, cortisol, your mood, mental health, bone health, energy, skin, digestion. I mean, like everything. It plays a role in everything. So this is, to me, something that I can't believe that it's not talked about more to the depths that it should, because many women, in particular, and honestly, we're focusing on female health, but I'm just going to say too, men's hormone health also has some issues over there going on, but I will say our health is a bit more complex simply because of some of the things that we're going to go over here today. So I think we get the point here. It's important for many, many reasons. Now, I'm going to ask some questions, and you can just add a 1 in the chat if it's a yes, a 2 if it's a no, or if you have another comment. Okay, but the first question, have you ever been frustrated with your weight loss progress despite consistent efforts? Let's hear it. I figured I'd see a lot of ones. Okay, not to, that is kind of an obvious, but a lot of people actually don't experience this maybe, but just want to make sure we're on the same page. Now, number 2, do you ever lack motivation and energy to work out or even to get through the day? Do you feel that, think about maybe a year ago or 10 years ago, or maybe you have never experienced this of like, why is it so dang difficult and hard to gather the motivation to feel good about working out? That's what I thought. Do you ever experience cravings and increased levels of hunger that make it challenging to adhere to your diet? I definitely have experienced that. By the way, I've also experienced these things too. So that's another reason why I'm so passionate about this is I went through a lot of things early on that I shouldn't have because of not taking care of my just overall management of stress in the body every day. Do you ever experience low libido, sex drive? And maybe this is one of my corny jokes, but even if you are attracted to your husband, your partner, sometimes this is almost like a loaded question, like, okay, this is a physiological thing that happens. And honestly, and maybe I'll have a time for a couple of stories that I've worked with many females. The past several years, I was working in telemedicine, and I was dealing, with a lot of females that were dealing with this in particular. And there's a lot of gaslighting going on out there, especially in the medical world with some of these symptoms, and it's honestly kind of sad. But hormonal health 101. Have you ever tried to express your concerns with your doctor with some of these issues and receive little to no help? And my full disclaimer, I really don't want to make it seem like I'm here to bash doctors by any means. This is more so just that there's different lenses that different doctors will look through. So optimizing your well-being so that you feel the best you could possibly feel is just not the priority of most doctors because their main goal is to keep you alive and not so much have your highest level of vitality. Okay. Exactly. They want to, it's a Band-Aid approach. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But like I said, I know how it feels to be frustrated. I know how it feels to be not listened to. And I know how it feels to battle many of the issues that we're going to cover today. And I have worked with hundreds of clients and patients who have experienced the same. So I'm really glad you're here. And again, we're going to be like an open book. If I say something you have a question about, drop it in the chat. We're about to get into the fun stuff. Okay. Here's another quote. Women are not small men. Okay. This is actually not supposed to be a joke, but it kind of is, but I'm dead serious. And what I mean by this is some of the strategies that can be used that may work for a man that is like, let's talk about weight loss. Oh, you're plateauing as a female and you feel like you're doing twice as much cardio as your male counterpart over here. And they're like eating pizza and ice cream at night and they're dropping weight and shredded. And you're like, I'm eating tilapia and broccoli and weighing everything and starving and I'm gaining weight. So it's like, what? Because a whole nother topic that we won't get too into is like, what I'm talking about today, I'm not here to challenge things like calories in, calories out. The law of thermodynamics stands true. That is a real thing. But there are things that happen in the body, metabolic resistance, chronic inflammation, hormonal imbalance, chronic stress, gut health issues, thyroid issues, the list goes on, and they do impact what's going on. So women are not small men. And why does this matter? Because I just got to get this out of the way too. Because honestly, if there is a guy that joined the webinar, he's welcome. If you have a male friend or something that wants to watch this later, he's also welcome because a lot of what we're talking about does resonate in a different way. But I will say, Main systems that are affected here, you can see this visual. This is a pretty good visual. Like this alone, human body composition, physiologically, we are built differently. And metabolism, body composition, fat distribution, hormones, cardiovascular capacity, resilience to stressors. And I'll put an asterisk by this one too. First time I heard this, I actually got kind of like, well, defensive. I'm like, what do you mean resistance to stressors? You're trying to say that they can handle more stress? Well, when it comes down to mental fortitude, I think considering we're the gender that has the children and goes through all that, which I don't think they could handle that. But my point is the physiological stress, the resilience to that, they do have more testosterone, and that actually does make you more resilient to it. So therefore, they could literally get beat up by different stressors in different ways and supposed to be able to withstand that more. But I want to make sure that I break down the difference there because I was like, hold on a second. When it comes to this, that kind of actually explains why many guys can eat what seems like whatever they want and just go for a walk and get a six pack. I'm like, all right, cool. Not fun for us, right? So another quote, another little saying that I like to think of, and hopefully this will stick with some of you ladies. We need to work with our physiology, not against it. Okay. What that means is if you are trying to reach a goal and trying to lose weight, trying to have more energy, whatever it is, and you keep on experiencing symptoms, symptoms are signs. They are forms of communication from the body. If you're like, oh, I just feel more tired, the more that I try and push myself to do this thing over here. That is something that I want you to start tuning in to listen to more. But remember what we went through first. It's not to use that as a scapegoat, like, oh, Gentry said, I just need to rest. No, this is maybe the beginning of kind of like a paradigm shift in your mind where you're like, hold on, maybe I do need to have a better understanding of what my body's going through so that I can give it what it needs so that it responds accordingly. Because a healthy body is a responsive body. You follow me on that so far? Key physiological differences, male versus female. Generally, they have more muscle mass. Generally, they have higher concentrations of androgens or testosterone. Females need testosterone, but in smaller amounts. And then for females, we tend to have a higher body composition like we are supposed to because we are conceiving, we are, having the child, bearing the child. Higher concentrations of estrogens. Males also need estrogen, by the way, but in much smaller amounts. And we also have, this is the extra special that we have, natural hormone fluctuations for females through menstrual cycles and throughout the lifespan. Oh yeah. We're also doing this. All right. Shout out to us. All right. So will I use my hormones for good or evil today? This is kind of like a vibe, right? We don't know. It just depends. Just depends. So let's get to what's really important here too. I've said the word stress a few times, so we need to go ahead and define it. What is stress? I used to think that stress was whether or not you were having a good day, honestly. Because going back to that functional practitioner that really helped me early on to get my body back, basically, he was like, Gentry, we've done all these things. You've changed these habits. You've, pulled back your training. You've changed your diet a little bit. We're actually introducing more food in because I was just cutting my carbs more and more and more. I was basically starving myself and it wasn't working. He's like, you are just chronically stressed right now. And I'm like, I laughed because I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm one of five and I am considered the sibling that is the cool, calm, and collected. And the one that is like, if everyone else is freaking out, I'm just like, I don't know why you guys are freaking out. Everything's fine. And so for me to be told that I was chronically stressed I thought that was a joke. It's like, okay. Then I learned, okay, this is what stress is. Stress is a natural human response that prompts us to address challenges and threats in our life. Okay, understood. By causing mind-body changes, stress contributes directly to psychological and physiological disorders and diseases and affects the mental health and physical health, reducing quality of life. all right? Stress can be defined as any type of change that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain. Stress is your body's response to anything that requires attention or action. I was like, all right, got it. I was defining stress the wrong way. And I also love this chart. This is not even a completely comprehensive chart, but it is pretty comprehensive. Stress can be broken down to these categories and these subcategories and those teeny tiny, and probably even more categories from there. But just to throw out a few that you might not realize: sleep, your circadian rhythm, how well you're sleeping at night, that can be affecting the load of stress in the body, which we're about to go over next. Inflammatory signals, gut health issues, arthritis, cardiovascular issues, allergies. If you've got allergies, you've got inflammatory signals going on. Glycemic dysregulation, we're going to definitely talk about this. Insulin resistance, blood sugar, all that fun stuff. And then there's the perceived stress. And I feel like this is like here, if you can see can you guys see my pointer right here? Okay, just making sure. Sometimes I've done that before and people are like, I don't see what you're doing. Okay, just making sure you can see it. This is usually where people think that this is all the stress is. It's more so like the mental, emotional, like, oh, I'm feeling burnt out. I'm, relationship issues, finances, or anything like that. And that certainly can play a big role, but it's all these other things too. So why does that matter? What does our body define as life-threatening? Well, hint, the human body's stress response system, designed centuries ago, has not adapted to modern life. So think about, it doesn't differentiate between life-threatening events like a bear chasing you and everyday stressors. So our phones going off, trying to multitask, trying to balance things, answering emails. Think about how life is now versus how it was, hundreds of years ago. I mean, I wasn't there, but I've heard that it wasn't quite as stressful in different ways. And so being chased by a bear and also not getting good sleep, your hormones fluctuating and changing, having gut health issues, inflammation, what else? I mean, go back to that chart, add to that, those both trigger the release of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Everyone follow me so far on that? It all makes sense now, right? It's starting to make sense maybe. Examples of stressors. Here's some more: work stress, relationship stress, even like PTSD or emotional trauma. That is a stress that can live in your body, which the conversation today is not, to go dive into that. And it's also like something that I said early on was we really want to make sure we're continuously focusing on what we can control versus what we can't control too. There are some things like, when I was working with clients one-on-one, I would have clients that were going through all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, all right, we would do an audit of everything they have going on. And I'm like, okay, in this bucket over here, these are things we're going to define and identify as we can't do anything about really. And even if we can, it's not realistic to change these things right now. So let's focus on these things. And that's what I challenge you guys, like just rule of thumb. That is something that I challenge you to take away from today, is at least that. Like, okay, Gentry says, focus on what's in my control versus not. And some things you just can't control, right? Things like resistance training. You're like, wait, it's a stress? Well, if you're training twice a day and you've been eating in a caloric deficit just chronically for weeks and weeks and months, and you're not getting very good sleep at night, you're over caffeinating yourself because you're so tired, you have stress from work, you travel for work, now you're experiencing some seasonal allergies and you sprained your ankle, like your body is kind of like, it's very resilient. But these are things that start to add up that can impact how we might need to look at what interventions we can take to help support the body. Okay? Now, I did make this, but just another visual. This is you. This is me. This is all of us. And this is, talking about the bear. I don't know if that's Bigfoot or a gorilla. I'm really not sure, but I would be running. But this is also really the insulin resistance, poor sleep, hormonal imbalance, stress eating, chronic inflammation. Okay. So what is allostatic load? This is something I've kind of been referring to, but I'm now just going to define this really quick. So allostatic load refers to the cumulative wear and tear on the body caused by chronic stress. And it results from the body's repeated attempts to adapt to stressors, leading to physiological and psychological strain. When environmental challenges exceed the individual's ability to cope, then allostatic overload ensues. So I do love this visual. I call this the stress bucket, and I can't read his name. I didn't make this, but this guy or girl did a great job, because basically everyone, think about, you have a bucket. That is your load of allostatic, or your allostatic load of stressors. And like it says, some people have a higher threshold and potential for the level of stressors that they can actually withstand. And I won't get into it too much, but there are ways that we can become more resilient, even mentally, and kind of face those stressors in a different way so that it doesn't take such a toll on us physically. But I'll give you an example. I have a friend, and I bet you we all have a friend, and maybe this is you, and that's fine too, but maybe it doesn't matter. Point is, there are people that they will think themselves into a worse state of stress because they haven't developed a better way to cope with that stress. Okay. That is an example of how it can affect that stress bucket. So, let's see if I can read. I can't read some of that. I thought I could, but basically, as we add things into this bucket and in different seasons of our life, if you're going through a season of really high stress and you're also at the gym and you're trying to do your workouts and you're trying to take care of yourself, but maybe what needs to be done is give yourself a couple of days off to get some good sleep and decompress and relax, and then go back to the gym. That's one example. Another kind of disclaimer I'll give: be careful not to use some of these examples to give yourself a license to skip out on things you know you should do, right? Now maybe you're thinking, Gentry, you're confusing the heck out of me right now. Do you want me to rest or not, right? It is more complicated than that a little bit, but the bigger picture is, if you are getting signals from your body left and right about you chronically just fatigued, you feel like crap, you're not motivated, you don't feel like yourself, you're up and down, your mood changes, you're having a really difficult time losing weight. These are kind of signs that maybe we just need to audit what stressors are filling our bucket, okay? And how can we reduce that load of stress so that we can re-energize? You guys follow me on that? Not going to read all of this, but I do want to explain cortisol a little bit more. This is our fight or flight hormone. You guys heard of cortisol? So this is released by the adrenal glands in response to stress. The goal is not to eliminate cortisol, by the way. That's just as detrimental. We need cortisol. But when cortisol becomes excessive, think about you're under stress and it's a pulse of cortisol, cortisol, cortisol. Now you're just like, its main purpose is regulating systems in the body for safety, survival, motivation, and mood. It's our body's built-in alarm system, but it also increases energy availability by converting proteins and fats to glucose. So basically, or in glucose. So basically, when our body sends a signal to release cortisol, one of the first things that happens is that our liver will send out more glucose into the bloodstream. Why does that happen? Because it thinks that we need to fight or flee. It's literally preparing energy for us. It thinks that we're being chased by a bear. Does that make sense now? So speaking of cortisol, blood sugar dysregulation, insulin resistance, that has a lot to do with stress. So you hear about things like prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, high blood sugar. Yes, a lot of that does come from a sedentary lifestyle, poor diet, like a host of other things over here, but it also has a lot to do with cortisol. And when you combine the two, it's a perfect storm. And it's really, that piece is not talked about enough. But there's a lot of different effects of excess cortisol in the body. These are some of them. It can also promote fat storage, especially in the abdominal area. which contributes to visceral fat accumulation. Who wants that? Not me. Common symptoms of high cortisol. Things like elevated blood pressure, elevated fasted blood sugar. Let me ask you this. This is not designed to be a trick question, but what do you guys think would be a not so good blood sugar in the morning? So if you were to, prick your finger and see what your blood glucose is, what do you think would be, or maybe if you know, what would be ideal and like what would be not so ideal? That's a quick quiz for you. Let's see if anyone knows. I know it might be a challenge. I was 85 ideal, more than 120 not ideal. That answer in part is true. Anything north of 120. Okay? So what if I told you that actually once you're getting into 90 to 95, approaching 100, you're what I call like no man's land. And that's one of the first signs that your doctor, especially if it's like your general practitioner, isn't going to think twice about. It gets to 95, 97, 103. Are you pre-diabetic? No, not based on that. But are you getting there? Yeah, that's really not very ideal. So what happens is instead of having a preventative approach and recognizing some of these earlier signs, as I talked about, again, my dad's a doctor, so I come from a family of doctors, so I don't mean to bash the doctors. It's more so the lens that they're looking through. And unless you go to a particular doctor who's really like, hey, let's peel back the layers of the onion and get down to the root of it. But that's why it's so frustrating for a lot of people, because there's all these early signs of we can actually get this thing under control. But the fact that you guys are right. That is pretty standard. Anything north of 120, yeah, that's when something's actually even begun to be done about, right? I'm like, whoa, we could have addressed this a long time ago. So this is something that I've seen a lot. So I want to make that clear. Other symptoms here, you guys probably were reading through this too. You can see high cortisol symptoms. And then there's also low cortisol symptoms. What you need to know about the difference between these two is that the root problem of both of them is stress. And really, low cortisol issues is really what comes after high cortisol issues. You go through a period of having high cortisol, and then eventually the body starts to adapt, and now it's low cortisol. That's really the takeaway from that. Either way, one is not better than the other. They're both things that need to be addressed, but just want to throw that out there. All right, now let's talk about sugar cravings. Insulin resistance. Actually, I see a question. So stressed, having heart palpitations, don't know how to stop the stress. Hopefully not right now. Maybe we should stop and do a breathing exercise together. So honestly, like when it comes to stress though, this is actually pretty common. Like you hear more about anxiety and panic attacks and just feeling like, oh my gosh, that is 100,000% a direct response to having elevated cortisol levels for a period of time. So insulin resistance, what is insulin? It's a hormone that facilitates glucose entry into cells for energy. You probably heard it, but maybe you'd like to know that if you didn't. Insulin resistance occurs when liver, fat, and muscle cells do not respond effectively to insulin. So maybe you've all heard this term insulin resistance. It's like the root of all evil, basically. And anyone that's having issues with losing weight, insulin resistance is hanging around there. But this is a good visual, I think. So how does insulin work, or how is it supposed to work? Is basically, and I didn't make this chart, but that's a typo and that's bothering me, but let's just pretend that there's an N right there. My goodness. So here's your cell. Insulin, glucose is going through the bloodstream. And when you eat food or when you have cortisol, pancreas sends out, pancreas sends out insulin to help balance the glucose. And that's also how the glucose enters the cell with the insulin. It's like the key. Well, what happens when the insulin resistance occurs is where now it's like the insulin is no longer there. It's like the key doesn't work. It's like your glucose is higher, and instead of being insulin sensitive is the opposite of insulin resistant. You want to be more insulin sensitive so that your body is utilizing the glucose that's available and not just bouncing off of it like it's not there. Like that's annoying, right? Like having higher glucose and it's readily available energy, but like insulin and glucose just can't get on the same page. That's what's happening. A lot of reasons, a lot of things cause it, but even prolonged exposure to high blood sugar levels. I actually think I have a chart on the next page I'll go over, but basically the pancreas is producing more insulin to control blood sugar, but eventually it just can't keep up, causing high blood sugar levels. Here's a visual. So where do we start? You could actually start anywhere because it's an endless cycle here. But we'll start here. You eat food, your body produces insulin because why? Glucose has gone up. This is normal. Well, when this is done, when you've gone through this cycle for a long time and there's been a poor diet, maybe there's been genetic factors, maybe there's been stress, maybe there's been a sedentary lifestyle, multiple things like that, right? Now your cells are starting to resist the insulin. Now the body is storing more body fat. Now low blood sugar is causing you to feel fatigued and increased cravings. Have you ever felt this blood sugar roller coaster where it's like high blood sugar, low blood sugar, and you never feel like stable with that? That is a sign of insulin resistance. And so what happens is you start going in this cycle and you're getting these signals and triggers to eat more food in your brain. Ghrelin, leptin, these are different hormone and satiety signals that are being sent out, and it's like the wires are crossed. They're like, I think we're hungry, but really the body is just not utilizing the energy that it has. And so that's where that vicious cycle gets going. And cravings are very, very, it's like a itch you can't scratch almost. And people experience this on different levels, I will say. Overall, what people don't realize is that cravings, 90% of them, and I'm very confident in giving that statistic, 90% or maybe even more are stemming from high stress. I'm so hungry, but I'm on a diet. Story of your life. I don't know. I've felt that before too, right? It's like not even just sugar cravings, but just cravings in general. So I do want to go over a couple of products here that I'm sure many of you have heard about some of these products, and maybe you don't know how great they can be, especially when in the context here. I'm really big on understanding the application of something so that you can know what this tool is for and then implement it accordingly. So this is a product that it's called Crush. It's a cravings crusher product. When you first hear this, it's like, oh, okay, sounds like a magic pill. Well, no, I don't like referring to it that way because it's not what it is. It's here to support certain things so that it helps to reduce cravings. In this case, it helps to support feelings of satiety, which is basically helping you to feel fuller longer, reduce cravings. But how is it reducing cravings? How is it supporting healthy blood sugar levels and inflammation and cognitive function? I have a couple of key ingredients in here that I just like to highlight because for me, I feel like when I understand a little bit more about what is in this thing, what is in this product, and why would I even consider using it? Why is this tool here? I feel like I can connect with it better because I'm like, oh, okay. I don't need to know like the full scientific formula necessarily of everything, right? Or maybe that's what you're thinking to yourself, because I am a complete nerd and I do feel like I need to know the full scientific formula, but I digress. But I think being able to help people understand like what those things are doing also can help them connect to what is happening with that product, right? In conjunction with everything else. So a couple things, chromium picolinate. This is like an essential mineral that helps to stabilize blood sugar levels and help regulate appetite. 5-HTP helps to naturally increase serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter. If you've heard of serotonin, sometimes it's referred to as like a feel-good neurotransmitter. There's a lot of different things that serotonin does, but one of those being to help to manage stress and decrease sugar cravings. Beta glucans. This is really, if you are a nerd, maybe you're like, Gentry, I really don't care, but I'm just going to tell you, you should go down this rabbit hole. Beta glucans is really incredible. There's even some studies that also help with like anti-cancer properties and all kinds of things. But this is a soluble fiber to help enhance feelings of satiety and slow gastric emptying and increase GLP-1. So anyone know what GLP-1 is? Anyone know what Ozempic is? Ozempic, Mounjaro, whatever the commercials song is that gets stuck in your head. Wegovy, semaglutide, not semi-glutide. It's not a semi-truck. Semaglutide, tirzepatide, exenatide. Okay, these are all GLP-1 analogs. And GLP-1 is a peptide. This is something that's produced naturally in the body. It is secreted when we eat food. So maybe we can talk about GLP-1s a whole nother time. But one thing about this medication is, aside from the fact that there's people out there that may abuse it and there's bad things that come from it, I will tell you in this context in particular, especially like this is not, I'm not comparing this to the same thing as taken like Ozempic, because that's actually a very stronger version of GLP-1. But what this is doing is it can help increase your natural production of it, which, by the way, if you ate a cracker right now, you ate anything, your body's producing GLP-1. So this is not foreign to the body. It's something the body creates. But happen to know a thing or two about it. And I've worked with many patients that have used this. I won't go on my soapbox, There's great use for it. But what's important to know about this is that there's ingredients in here that help to increase that thing that everyone's going nuts over, and is honestly an incredible tool when used properly. But this is something that is very natural. And does it give you side effects of Ozempic? No, no. Especially some of the like real extreme things that you hear about. Nothing close to that. Nothing more than like like I said, when you eat food, your body's increasing GLP-1, but this is helping to do that, which sends these other signals out that tells the brain. It actually helps to shut down the reward center in the brain, which is actually really incredible. It's one of the reasons why I keep trying not to go on my soapbox, but it is one of the reasons why people have used things like Ozempic and actually stopped drinking, stopped smoking, because it's connected to the reward center in the brain. So there's a lot of, other applications out there that we'll probably continue to learn about. But sharing a win, completely weaned off of sertraline and Zoloft almost after 20 years, that's amazing. Shout out to you. That's huge. There are so many people I've talked to that have not been able to do that. That's awesome. So good. You feel a lot better, don't you? So to piggyback off that, if we can get the body to do things and use tools to help that, then that's a win, right? Rhodiola rosea, Panax ginseng, ashwagandha, these are all adaptogens, which are also natural ingredients. Basically, adaptogens by definition are there to help make your body more resilient against stress. So it's almost like putting up a shield against that stress in certain ways. So when I go back to the things that are in my control and out of my control, that's why, like, to me, like this is like one of my like golden tools that I recommend for almost anybody, even if they're not experiencing symptoms of cravings yet, even though I think a lot of people do. But this probably could even be called something different because of how well it helps with shielding you more against stress, not completely eliminating it, because that really doesn't exist. But this is helping to be a tool that you can have in your arsenal. Anyone have any questions about that? I also like to bring up the thermogenic. So this is a fat burner. And here's the thing. When our body is resisting losing fat and using fat as energy, and stress is high, for us to not consider using something to actually physiologically help the body combat that, to me, is like Like it's right here. Like this can help and give you a leg up. This is one of my phrases that I go to a lot, by the way. I'll probably say this a few more times, but what I kind of get passionate about is because I think I told you or you guys read about, like I've worked with over 750 different clients over the past almost 15 years. I don't train like one-on-one or anything like that anymore. But I have worked with a lot of people who are doing everything that they can to lose weight, to have more energy, fill in the blank, and they're doing everything damn near perfectly, excuse my French, but like doing just about everything they can. And then I find out that someone tells them, oh, well, you need to not use anything. You should just eat right and you're going to be able to reach your goals. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we need to eat right. Absolutely. Like that's like supplementation and things like that only work as well as your diet and your habits do, period. Take it to the bank. But for us to like disregard that there are tools that can actually help our body use stored fat for energy and give us a leg up to help bring down the loud cravings that we're experiencing to help us adhere to the diet, I'm like, gosh, like it kind of gets me fired up because I've heard this so many times. And then the actual definition and benefit of the supplements are now lost because it's like, it's become so polarizing where it's like, oh, it's either this or this. And I'm like, let's talk about the application of this and see how it fits in with you, you know? So lots of different ingredients in this one in particular. Inflammation is a huge thing. I haven't mentioned it too much, but chronic inflammation in the body, that can be the first domino in a host of other events: metabolic syndrome, metabolic adaptation, impaired immune system. The list goes on. Inflammation inherently is not bad. That's another thing too that we need. The body is doing that because it's trying to protect us. But I digress. Does anyone have any questions about like, and I know maybe some of you have used some of these products or not, but feel free again to ask questions here because now we're about to talk about more female sex hormones next. Everyone good?
I got a question if I could just ask really quick.
Yes.
Um, so Gentry, I'm just like my inflammation, like I had a herniated disc years ago after I had my second child, and like I just noticed like it just comes and like the inflammation just like comes and goes. Like I'm noticing it now when like I have a alcoholic drink, which I don't have a much, but that once a month, like I feel like the next 3 days, like I'm like stiff, like it's like really unbearable almost. Like it's now I'm noticing that it's starting to be triggered by foods. Like if I eat a lot of sugar or and I need help. I've tried detoxing. Like I usually go like a day, 24 hours where I just push straight liquids and that seems to help. But I guess I would need help on like what to avoid, and I know
Well,
I should avoid alcohol. I try to stick to it as slim as I can, only have one or two, but
yeah. Well, first of all, I'm really sorry you're dealing with that. That is a nightmare. And it also is, if you noticed, it's hardly ever one thing, right? It's hardly ever, I just have inflammation, but nothing else. It's
yeah.
inflammation, then it's the stiff joints. I would venture to say, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably have, you know, digestive issues, gut health issues, irregularities, those things, because everything's intertwined and interconnected together.
Mm-hmm.
In short, I can tell you, and I also am known for giving tough love too. Um, like I said early on too, sometimes we will seek out to get certain answers of like, how do I got to get away from this thing. I gotta improve this. But then we also know certain things that are 100% exacerbating that symptom: alcohol, eating high sugar foods, processed foods. And this actually kind of ties into what I was just saying too. Like, I'm definitely not saying like there's like this sergeant mentality that some people have. It's like just have the discipline and just overcome it. And like, if not, like, I'm like, yeah, you gotta have, you do have to have discipline. You do have to dig within yourself and you do have to seek out everything you can to, decide, am I tired of feeling this way and I want to do something about it or not, right? But that's exactly what I'm talking about, is utilizing different tools, support, community, coaching, diet, all of these things. And, I do wish that I had like just a simple answer for you other than at least avoiding the things that are triggering that. And I don't know, I mean, because again, this is where it started, like you start peeling back the layers of this, like how long's that been going on? Oh gosh, that's my dog. Just scared the hey, hey. Dog had something to say about that. Um, but you see what I'm saying? So like what right now, and maybe you don't know the answer to this, but like what do you think would be the most valuable thing that I could maybe help provide?
Like I would mind like some more like stretching for because I have a sit down job. So I think that's a lot to do with it too. I've tried sitting on the exercising ball. I've started working out when Nicole, I think that's her name. Lord, I hope I got their name right. Julie, maybe Julie, that's it. And so I have this week and I feel so much better. Like the day we did the stretches and I feel so much better. But like I wish I would know what would trigger that more because I would probably stay away from I really would stay away from it because I don't like the recovery that I have to do when I
Yeah.
get
Well, I
down.
can I can tell you you're definitely in good hands with Julie.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna follow up with Julie a little bit too and just kind of send some other like general recommendations I can tell you is like the more that you move away from the first thing I think of is even just food, more
Yeah.
whole foods, make sure you're getting enough protein in throughout the day. Even just walking.
Yeah.
Walking does wonders. If I read something the other day and it was like if you could actually take a pill, like speaking of pills, if you could take a pill that encapsulated all the benefits of getting like 6 to 8 to 10,000 steps per day, it would be flying off the shelves. It would be the most valuable thing that we all could get. And I'm not even kidding. That's
Mm-hmm.
how great it is. So, Julie, you're in good hands with Julie. And if we have some more time at the end too, we can talk about this a little bit more.
Okay.
Okay. So let's talk about female sex hormones. Question: what is the most biologically abundant hormone in the female body? Let's hear it. Who knows? You guys are like, so many quizzes. Estrogen, progesterone, estrogen, it's testosterone. Yeah, that's what I said too. I was like, no, what? It is, it is the most whoop, sorry, my screen just went wonky. It is the most biologically abundant hormone in the female body. Or as I should put it, when everything is functioning optimally, it should be. And so this seems counterintuitive, right? Because everything's always been testosterones for guys and estrogens for girls. And it's like, here's the thing. Testosterone levels for females, like we have about 1/10 of what guys have, or when things are operating, optimally for us and for them. But the small amount that we have in comparison to the rest of our hormones is still a higher concentration. Speaking of, last several years, now I've looked at hundreds, actually probably over thousands of blood panels. And on these blood panels, we're looking at hormone markers. And it's crazy that even the unit of measurement is different and it makes it seem like estrogen is much higher. Okay. When testosterone is low, it's low. Okay. But when things are optimal, the actual concentration of it, it is the most biologically abundant hormone in the body, in the female body. So the reason why I say that is it is a fun fact, but it also should tell you more about why, like, all the benefits of experiencing optimal testosterone levels as a female really make a lot of sense when we find out, like, oh, if you have low testosterone, you're not feeling so good. You're not as resilient against stress. It can cause bone density issues. It can impair fat loss. So when you're experiencing benefits of it, fat loss is more optimal. Your libido is healthy. You're able to maintain lean muscle mass. And, I've done this before and I can't believe I forgot to add this slide, but like I used to have this in another presentation, I have this picture of like, it's like what you think testosterone does for a female. And it's like, imagine like Miss Olympia, some bodybuilder female or something. And that's kind of like a stereotype there of like what that, and I'm like, well, that's a different context. For females, though, that small amount that we need in comparison to men is still, it's like the backbone of who we are. So feeling yourself, feeling energy, feeling vitality, very, very, very important. I like this one too. I don't feel like myself. My workouts suck and I'm always tired. You have low testosterone. This is very common. Not always the case, but some of the signs here, low motivation, low energy. So motivation is often tied into symptoms of low testosterone because there's a dopaminergic effect to testosterone. Dopamine is one of the molecules that's associated with reward and our desire to go do something and motivation and all that. So kind of interesting. Estrogen helps prevent heart disease, bone health, libido, energy. Serotonin, which is another neurotransmitter, supports quality sleep, improves insulin sensitivity, does a lot of things. And also, it has ebbs and flows throughout life. So like through adolescence, and then into adulthood during your childbearing years, obviously during pregnancy and then post-menopause. And I have a chart that I can show you here in a second. I believe it's coming up here. Yeah, it'll be here in a second, but this is a part of it. There's issues like estrogen dominance that is a whole nother topic that a lot of females experience where there's an imbalance between too much estrogen and not enough progesterone, or maybe you have sufficient estrogen but still not enough progesterone, or maybe you have low estrogen and low progesterone, right? So there's different combinations of things that can happen, but a lot of these things are affected also by stress, okay? Estrogen dominance, for example, I just mentioned. One of the main causes of this or effects, depending on which came first, the chicken or the egg, sometimes one can cause the other and vice versa, is gut health issues. When you're not able to properly secrete bowel movement, which secrete estrogen through your bowel movement, that's how we secrete estrogen, then it recirculates in the bloodstream. And now we have an extremely high level of estrogen causing, inflammation, weight gain, difficulty losing body fat, mood changes. If you're in your childbearing years and still having a normal menstrual cycle, as in having a period, every 28 to 35 days, you could be having some of the worst cramps and PMS symptoms of your life because of estrogen dominance. So it's really important, really important. So another product that is also this, a lot of people don't realize, especially females, they see something like this and it's like, oh, this is helping to support your natural testosterone production. Like, I don't want to touch that because that sounds like something a guy should take. Honestly, this is more beneficial for most females than even guys, in my strong opinion, because of how this helps to support your natural testosterone production, but not to some, super physiological level that's going to be too much. And it helps to regulate estrogen. So things like DIM, that's an ingredient in there, helps to support a healthy estrogen metabolism, preventing excess estrogen from being stored in fat cells. So like someone that has really high estrogen, sometimes like we can't always look at, like if you look at your stomach and you're like, is this fat? Is that water? What is this? Estrogen is kind of like a fat cell and a water cell together. So when there's deposits of estrogen because of estrogen dominance, for example, and the body doesn't have tools to be able to metabolize it and get rid of it and regulate it, causes problems, right? So it also helps. There's such thing as having your overall testosterone in your body versus the amount you're actually using. Total testosterone versus free testosterone. And free testosterone is, just think of it like the usable form of test. It would be like if you had sufficient testosterone, but not enough like usable form of it, that'd be like me sending you all a briefcase full of hundreds but not giving you the key and there's no way you can get into it. It's not very valuable. It's not very useful, right? And you probably wouldn't like me too much. Like, can you send the key? Okay. Progesterone. So this is also extremely important. And someone mentioned this, although it's not the most abundant, it is important. Healthy levels are supposed to rise during the luteal phase and peak around day 19 through 22. And I'm going to show you a good little visual of what that looks like here in a second. But key benefits of progesterone: this acts like a natural diuretic, helps to improve sleep, alleviate depression, anxiety, thyroid hormone production or action in the body. So again, there's lots of connections of different, like thyroid hormone and progesterone, thyroid and testosterone, thyroid and cortisol. They all have different relationships, and we're trying to achieve hormonal harmony. And so something like Enhance, for example, is a really, really like low-hanging fruit tool to go for, especially as you're like, honestly, 30, 35 and up. I will say the only time for females that I really don't recommend it, excuse me, is if you do have PCOS or have hyperandrogenism, which is basically too much testosterone in the body in the first place. Even then, I still am like, it's not like it's going to surge the testosterone necessarily or cause issues. There's actually a chance that it could actually help a little bit. But in my opinion, I just don't think that it's the best tool to utilize whenever you have a high androgen, you're basically androgen dominant rather than, well, you might be estrogen dominant too, but does that make sense? So if you have PCOS or you've been told you have PCOS, even though it's commonly misdiagnosed, I would just probably avoid it. But if you ever have any questions or anything, just ask. But yeah, want to make sure that was out there. Some other symptoms of low progesterone: hot flashes, PMS, so the menstrual cramps, and fertility issues. So I will say, like, if you were to go to, get hormone replacement therapy or something, get progesterone, maybe you're approaching menopause, you're in perimenopause, and you're starting to experience some of those symptoms. This can help kind of ease that process. And there's even like other natural ingredients out there that can help improve it. But I will kind of disclaimer: if you're on birth control, is specifically on birth control to literally prevent birth, you from conceiving, I wouldn't take progesterone, because progesterone will be counterproductive to that. Progesterone is what kind of, it suppresses your progesterone so that you don't get pregnant. So side note. But don't have to worry about that in Enhance or anything like that. But as far as progesterone goes, this is not going to increase your progesterone, but it does help overall hormone production. This is an essential fatty acid complex, and I'll say for male and female, but especially females, this should be a staple for everybody. It is there to support. Side note, I don't think I said this earlier. Where do our hormones stem from? Cholesterol. Cholesterol is the mother of all hormones, and then it metabolizes into pregnenolone and then all of our other sex hormones. Well, I know you hear about cholesterol. It's another topic for another day. But when you don't have good healthy fats to actually generate your hormones, then you're in a lose-lose scenario. Your body's already down-regulating hormones, and now you don't have the essential fatty acids to even help create them in the first place. But this does help with symptoms of PMS and PCOS, reduces breast tenderness. If you have skin issues, really great with that. Alpha lipoic acid also helps with improving insulin resistance. And MCT oil is like a medium chain triglyceride, which is a really, really, really great healthy fat that can actually help basically think about the bad fats and the good fats, even though I don't really like describing it that way, but just in layman's terms, when you have more of this, it can help overcome the negative effects of having bad fats, high triglycerides, LDL. So this is the staple. But jokes about menstrual cycles are not funny, period. Okay. You get it? Hopefully you get it. You'll get it later if you don't. All right. So this is just a quick visual. What happens during a normal cycle? So hormone levels fluctuate, causing changes in the uterus and ovaries. And let's see here. Where am I looking? So see your LH and FSH, these are basically signaling hormones, okay? As you start to approach menopause, if you're getting your blood panels done and stuff, you can actually see them rise on your blood panel. But if you're not, you don't have to worry about it because still your symptoms can really tell you you're starting to go through perimenopause, which is the time frame before menopause when you stop producing your sex hormones. But ultimately, this is here to let you know that there are certain times of the month that we obviously feel a certain way, function better in certain ways, and worse in other ways, depending on the time of the month. And you're like, okay, Gentry, you're not telling me anything you don't know, or I don't know. But whenever these lines get crisscrossed and wonky all over the place, it creates chaos. When we have tools through proper exercise and even things as simple as walking and knowing what foods not to eat, what things not to do, sometimes that's even where you should start. But this gets completely thrown off track when you throw in stress, when you throw in, I think we're going to talk about birth control, which disclaimer, I'm not here to tell you to stop taking birth control. I'm more so just the messenger and saying that birth control has a place and it does affect hormones and it can explain why you feel certain ways, but a lot of times you're just not at least being told that, right? So you can go back and read this more in depth because I want to make sure we get through everything. But there's different phases throughout your menstrual cycle. Okay. We know this and it matters, especially when things are really wonky at certain times of the month. It can throw the whole body for a loop. What if you're on birth control? This alters the levels of estrogen and progesterone. Okay. These are more structurally similar to testosterone than progesterone themselves, which is interesting. But whenever there's too much progestins, it can actually cause females to seem like they're experiencing PCOS type symptoms like hair loss and even higher blood pressure, acne, anxiety, stuff like that. But this is more so an informational, like not telling you to stop taking birth control or start or anything in between. It's just an informational exchange of there's different types of birth control that affect your hormones. Anybody have any questions about that? What's also important to know is that there are very specific nutrients depleted by birth control and stress. Folate, vitamins B, vitamin B2, 6, 12, vitamin C, D, E, magnesium, selenium, CoQ10, zinc. It can cause a thyroid downregulation because of how these particular nutrients are utilized by the thyroid and needed by the thyroid. It can cause an increase in cortisol and negatively alter the gut microbiome, causing things like leaky gut. This is leaky gut. Most people have leaky gut. It is basically, you see these little tight junctions. This is what it's supposed to look like. And when things like stress, things like bad diet, even certain medications will cause an inflammation, can cause these junctions to now become leaky. I guess intestinal permeability is the name. And then the pathogens leak out into the bloodstream, and now we're in a domino effect of bloating and any other GI distress that you can name. So that can happen, but that is another reason why I do love this particular product. Greens. This is like your insurance plan for these vitamins. And I happen to highlight the hormonal birth control nutrients that are depleted by the hormonal birth control, which happens to be the ones I've highlighted here. But the antioxidant properties, the anti-inflammatory properties of this, there's a lot of ingredients in here that helps to improve your cholesterol and how your body's metabolizing cholesterol, blood pressure, all of those things, in my very strong opinion, that especially with all the forces of nature and environment that we're working against and stressors, it's like equipping us to be able to handle that even better, even when you are having a really sound diet, right? It has a great fiber in here too. Most people are not getting enough fiber in. This tastes really great. Sleep. Now, I could really talk a lot about sleep, and I have a couple slides here that I'll probably go through a little bit faster. But going back to stress and the chronic stress that we're talking about, if you're not getting good sleep, then it doesn't matter all the tools that you're using or the habits that you're trying to improve. you're constantly going to be in a losing battle because the number one prime time for your body to recover and become more resilient against that stress is while you're sleeping. This is a really powerful sleep aid to help with that. And regardless what some people think and the things that I've been asked before, this doesn't create any dependency. It doesn't create any dependency, and there's no downside. The downside is you sleep too well through your alarm clock, maybe, because you finally got a good night of sleep. You know what I mean? So there's also ingredients in here to help support your thyroid and metabolism. So we want to help keep thyroid and metabolism firing through the night and going strong while you're getting the best fat burner of all, which is a good night of sleep. Truly. Good night of sleep that brings down stress, that brings down cortisol. This is also a zoomed out perspective. What's going on from childhood to menopause. And this is just highlighting estrogen and progesterone, or estradiol, which is our main estrogen that we are really talking about here. But as you can see, reproductive years, and then what's going on here. Add a 1 in the chat if you feel like you're here. And you might be here, you might be here, or you might be here. Either way, this point in time, it does come, and it's a part of it is part of our body's natural progression, but there are ways that we can overcome this by supporting the body with certain nutrients, having good habits, and taking care of ourselves. Hysterectomy, no hormones. Yes, that is a thing. And that is it's also pretty common too. So this chart doesn't apply to you because your hormones took a sharp left, exit stage right somewhere else. And then as far as testosterone goes, this is kind of the trend as well. And this is estrogen too, just a different chart. So we're looking at it declining over time. If I had $1 every time I looked at a female over the age of even 35, 40, that her blood panel came back and it was her testosterone, her estradiol, and her progesterone were all almost completely bottomed out. I'm like, no wonder you feel like you feel like a zombie walking through the day. But lots of things to help support this, right? I want to stay on this longer, but for the sake of time, and I don't want you guys to actually, speaking of sleep, fall asleep on me or anything. This is our body's primary source of natural recovery from stress. Point blank period. You got to find a way to prioritize sleep where you can, what's in your control. And a lot of these things can and will happen when you're not getting optimal sleep. Your insulin sensitivity sucks. So decreased insulin sensitivity is increased insulin resistance. So whenever you hear people like, oh, like weight loss, I'm having issues with weight loss, and then in the same note, they have the world's worst sleep and probably a slew of other things going on. This is something right here that could be more effective than, cutting your calories even more, right? Hypothetically. So it really, really is important. And I think, in my opinion, over the past few years, I think it's finally starting to get the attention that it deserves, as far as like why we need to, kind of take care of that. But you can also review this more later. I wanted to have some actual like practical habits that you can consider. And just have a healthy nighttime routine. Avoid blue lights, which right now we're breaking this rule because the sun's down. We're on blue lights. I'm like, blue light blockers still ain't helping. You want to aim to unplug your mind, get into a routine, take a hot shower, sleep in a cool, dark room, use proper supplementation, use the tools you have to help you sleep. Because when you do a little bit of everything to help, it goes a long way, especially and really only when you're doing these other things too, like can't be having contradictory, actions of like, I'm going to eat healthy over here and then have these really detrimental habits that just pulling me in two different directions, right? Got to start coming to the middle here, meeting in the middle. And then just quick visual here. There is a real close relationship between melatonin and cortisol. So cortisol is supposed to be higher in the morning. This is what it's supposed to do. High in the morning, wake up. That's why, like, Do you remember the days, and maybe you're experiencing this now, which is great, but if you're not, which maybe several of you, can't remember the last time you woke up feeling refreshed. You're supposed to wake up feeling refreshed because that's your cortisol waking you up to a certain level. But if you're feeling like you woke up and got hit by a train, you're probably too low. If you're waking up feeling overstimulated, it's probably too high. But that's what's supposed to happen. And then cortisol is supposed to be low, and it kind of hands the baton off to melatonin. And I know this is kind of confusing, but this is melatonin being higher at night and then lower throughout the day. Not going to go through every single question here, but I did want to just pose some questions. So you're like, how do I kind of start to identify what some of these issues are? And is sleep an issue? Is my energy an issue? Like, so going through this could be a good way to help you audit, like, are you having issues falling asleep, staying asleep? Are you feeling rested after even 7 to 8 hours of sleep? Your energy, do you feel like you depend on caffeine? Do you have a regular bowel movement? Like, are some of you feeling attacked right now as I'm asking these questions? Just like, okay, like anything else? um, other questions you can ask yourself, but these are signs. These are signs. We want to try and plug in solutions to those signs. And a part of what I'm trying to do is educate on what tools we have and what habits we need to have in place in conjunction with that. And not focus on making some huge shift overnight, but knowing that you just starting now is the best thing you can possibly do, right? And almost to the end of the presentation here, I do want to go over a great tool that I purposely saved for last because I'm not leading with relying on an energy supplement, but because this is non-stimulant, this is actually a really great and smart way to use to help boost things without depending on some high caffeine, high stimulant tool to help with energy. Because if you completely disregard using things to kind of give you a boost with energy while you're trying to work on sleep, for example, then you might not be as successful. And this happens to have other like cognitive enhancing ingredients. I actually don't really use it very often as pre-workout. I do sometimes, but I more so use it as like an afternoon pick-me-up. If, you know, like it's got different B vitamins in there, L-tyrosine help increase dopamine, helps to put a little more pep in your step. And to me, having something like this as opposed to just not, it's a low-hanging fruit. I really, really like this product as well. And there's a reason that we have a separate option to add caffeine if you want to, because caffeine is not a terrible thing. It's only terrible whenever you're abusing it, right? But if you ever wanted to use this and have a little bit more boost, you can use a caffeine supplement as well. So that's available there. Now we're about to wrap up, but please listen in because this is the most important part of tonight. Is that good? Have I anyone asleep? Okay. So here are the facts. Nearly 50% of women with metabolic syndrome are undiagnosed, increasing their risk without proper intervention. This is what we call a massive awareness gap. Metabolic syndrome has a lot to do with some of the signs: high triglycerides, waist circumference more than, I believe, 35 inches, high blood pressure, low HDL, which we want that to be higher, and then high triglycerides, we want it to be lower. And I think there's one other thing. So metabolic syndrome is basically a product of everything we just talked about. And whoop, the thing is, these statistics don't lie, but do not let anyone convince you that you're powerless against them. And this is something that I'm very passionate about because I've seen this in action where it's almost like, well, here you are, and here's your situation, and well, all right, join the rest of them and be low energy and miserable. Like, honestly, I've pretty much seen that a lot. And then all these different tools and things that we can do to change and help are just disregarded because they're just like, you think that's going to make a difference? I'm like, actually, yeah, a lot. Having a healthy lifestyle, having good habits in place, all of those things. Okay. And I just added this here too, because I think it's important to just be aware, knowing that there's such an awareness gap. Metabolic syndrome prevalence, about 1 in 3 US women has metabolic syndrome. Increases the risk of heart disease, stroke, and type 2 diabetes. Menopause impact. Postmenopausal women face a 60% higher risk of developing metabolic syndrome as well because of declining estrogen levels. There are interventions that you can use to help overcome that, but it's still a fact. The obesity connection, major risk factor for metabolic disease. Cardiovascular risk. Women in particular, are 3 times more likely to die from heart disease, which is the leading cause of death among women in the United States. So if you wonder why I get kind of like worked up about it, is because it kind of pisses me off when there's so many tools that can be used to help, and taking a proactive approach and doing things with what you have and focusing on what you have in your control, and not just feeling like, well, this is just my destiny and I'm just going to have a low quality life. It's sad. So part of tonight is like, even just hearing, maybe you've heard this before, maybe you haven't, or maybe this is the time that kind of makes a difference, but like knowing that you have the power to do something about it is really powerful. And also everyone else that's on here and everyone else that's probably going to watch it afterwards, and maybe you're going to watch this again. I mean, it's really, really, really powerful. PCOS and diabetes, the exercise benefits alone can help reduce metabolic syndrome by up to 31%. Impact of proper nutrition and supplementation because of the necessity of proper micronutrients. This can significantly improve insulin sensitivity and decrease that inflammation, which ultimately reduces the risk of developing metabolic syndrome by up to 25%. So like, you hear all these things and it's like, that's pretty, you combine a lot of these things. I'm like, that's a lot that we actually do have in our control that we can do something about. But before we announce our raffle giveaway and a very special offer, this is, I know, kind of corny, but I think this, if you can really just be present for a second, close your eyes for a moment and just really think about what it is that you value, the people that you love, the quality of life you're living, and just, are you settling for that because you think that there's not other ways to help improve your situation? Or are you surviving, or are you thriving? Maybe you've heard that before. That's something I think about all the time. I kind of check myself with that too. Like, am I settling and just surviving and I'm just content with certain things? Or am I really reaching a certain potential and like knowing that I have the support around me and the knowledge and the tools and the just fortitude to get there? Okay. So I'm going to pass the mic to Julie for a special announcement and raffle giveaway. Julie?
Yes. Well, thank you, Gentry. This has been so awesome. I mean, the information is so detailed and unbelievable. And I know that we also have some questions, but
Yep.
okay. So a couple of things we've got. If you guys want to get started on a fitness plan, we have our 6-week Get Lean for Halloween challenge coming. So for those of you that are in our tribe, make sure you register for the challenge in the tribe chat. You know how to do that. For those of you that are not part of our tribe and you'd like to check it out and find out how you can get a fitness plan in place, have a nutrition guide with recipes, have a nutrition orientation with me, and set some goals for 6 weeks, and have weekly team meetings, a ton of support, and be part of our community, and have all of that for 50% off. I'm going to drop a link in the chat right now so you can join. And to our members, if you want to share this link, there's cash prizes and giveaways in our challenges too. So check that out. I'll go ahead and drop that right now. And then please take advantage of that. Right. And so Gentry, do you want me to do the raffle, or are you ready for me to pick a name?
Yeah. So before you pick a name, I did kind of build out some examples of like what I consider an ideal hormone and weight loss support stack It's not on our website. It's not like a set stack that you can find, but it's something that I kind of put together based off of a lot of the things we talked about today. And I wanted to give away a stack. So I had Julie, which she's probably been sitting there writing down names, and I think she's going to pull a name out of a hat, which is awesome because I was like, I think we could use an app to do it. And she's like, let's actually, I was like, yeah, let's actually pull a name out of a hat. So we're going to see who is going to get one of these stacks for free. Julie?
Yes, yes, definitely. Hold on a second.
Drum roll.
I'm ready. All right, ready? Drum roll. Okay, I have a name, and it is Kalista. Kalista, hopefully, are you still here?
Uh-oh.
She is here. She
Okay,
is.
okay.
I never win anything.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Where do you
So,
live again? Tell everybody where you're from.
I live in Cathlamet, Washington, on an island in the Columbia River between Oregon and Washington.
oh, that's awesome. Well,
Thank you.
congratulations. This is your night to win the stack. And whoops, sorry guys, my screen was just going nuts on me here. I am about to go through what the stacks look like because for those of you otherwise that are interested in some of those products, I wanted to make sure that you have have direction on how to get those things. And like Julie said, like the Lean by Halloween challenge and having something like that is just so incredible because you're not in it alone. You have tools and resources surrounding you. And it's like people can make changes without anything. Like you could wake up tomorrow and start making changes and no one's stopping you from that. But don't underestimate the power of surrounding yourself with other like-minded individuals and being able to have that support and kick in the butt when you need that to get done what you need to. Okay. So don't leave yet because I do want you guys to not miss this. Julie, if you want to actually drop this link in the chat for those that want to utilize this. And then I have two different, so everything that I've gone over is broken down into two different stacks. The first one is the Elite Hormone Balance and Weight Loss stack. So this is everything that I mentioned today. I actually did not specifically mention the protein powder. I can, and I will right now. Protein powder is a staple. It's also, when it comes to protein powder, sometimes people are like, is this like some magic to it? In my opinion, yes, because how are we going to get in the protein we need when we're go, unless you're going to eat chicken and turkey and eggs for every meal, which can be done. But we have a ton of different, recipe guides and things like that to help the food taste good so that you adhere to the diet better, which happens to be based on the protein powder flavors. So this first stack typically is $487, but your price, if you buy it just a one-time purchase, $365, or you can get it on Subscribe and Save, $347. So in a second, I can even just kind of walk you through this, but you'll use the link that Julie dropped and do the build your own bundle option. And as you add products, it will actually take a discount off of your stack. Okay, so this includes everything. And then the essential one, it includes everything that was in the Elite, except it just doesn't have Enhance and it doesn't have Fuel. So here's the thing. The truth is, you can also customize it a little bit more if you wanted to. I broke these down this way just to kind of give you two different visuals of commonly like what a lot of people like to utilize, especially after learning the benefits of these. So if you wanted to also add Fuel, which is our protein powder, but maybe you have PCOS and you don't want to use Enhance or something, you can do that through this build your own bundle option. Okay. And like Julie said, yeah, if you prefer to meet to discuss, you can schedule a call with her. I am here to answer questions. I don't know if there's some questions that I might have missed. Also, feel free to just turn your volume on and ask too. But I want to make sure that I answer questions for you guys about the presentation anything like that, about the supplements, diet, anything. Y'all have been awesome, by the way.
Hi, Gentry. My name's Melissa. And I just had a couple questions about, I feel like I'm going through menopause. My doctor hasn't done my hormone levels, checked them yet, but that's coming up on a future appointment here in September. I just feel like I have so much brain fog, like just can't get going in the morning. I can get up, but I just lack that motivation to want to exercise before work and too tired after work. Do you think that the Enhance is the best supplement there to kind of help with that?
I'm assuming that you don't have any PCOS issues
No, I
or
do
anything.
not.
Okay,
I do not.
just making sure.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely. Like honestly, especially since, and I don't want to ask like your age or anything unless you wanted to volunteer.
54.
Okay. So at that age too, as you saw too, your testosterone and your estrogen is for sure declining.
Okay.
Like this is, and I've had some really good kind of testimonials on this lately too, but like that's for sure something to utilize. I would absolutely. And out of curiosity, so when you go in to your doctor, I mean, when you get a blood panel ran, or when was the last time you had a blood panel ran, like that actually had other, not just your, CBC?
I haven't before. So I'm seeing a specialist for menopausal symptoms and
okay, good.
Kind of look at the hormones.
Yeah. This is how I describe Enhance as well for someone like you who's like in that, it's like if all roads eventually lead to you even transitioning to like a actual hormone replacement to help, which is very common and could be a great solution. This is still a great stepping stone and actually might even be something to help. You may not even need to or want to because you feel so great using this. You know what I mean?
Well, I'd like to try that because I really don't want to do hormones.
It's a win. It's in my opinion, it's a win-win because it's either going to help a little bit or it's going to help a lot.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay.
I am on HRTs and I want to start implementing the supplements back. Or is there like certain ones? I mean, right now my menopausal symptoms are everything, and that's why I chose to go the HRT route. And I have to say, I do feel better, but I'd still like to utilize the supplements. Is there ones that would work well with it, or?
Honestly, there's no contraindication or anything if you're taking HRT. It's going to help.
Okay.
So, and again, if you don't want to share, you message me. I'm in the Facebook group too, but if you don't mind sharing, like what is it? Which hormones are you taking?
It's called Prempro. It's the estrogen. I guess she's giving me more estrogen. But it's funny because, she went off my doctor went off my symptoms. So I didn't really have a formal blood panel for my hormone levels. But I mean, I have them all. Hot flashes, night sweats, sleep disruption, brain fog, the middle area, working out, eating healthy, not doing anything, mood swings. I'm talking a tornado. So I was taking the supplements, but my blood work for other panels were a little off. So they suggested to stop taking everything and just take my thyroid medication and see where that was. So now I'm trying to implement them back. So that's why I'm going to go back to taking the sleep. I was doing the sleep, I think the heat, the pre, the intra. I don't know what else was I taking, Julie. I don't remember. It was pretty much most of them.
And I would definitely take Crush, the Crush, Balance, you named the other ones, the greens. So the thing is like,
The heat too.
yeah, yeah, all the above. Yeah, all of those
Okay.
will be great. Yeah, none
Okay.
of those there's no,
Okay.
that's
No,
gonna
my
help.
other question is I do take thyroid medication, hypo, and I believe one of the supplements, I forgot which one it was, has the ashwagandha, the
Ashwagandha.
yes. And
Yeah,
that's supposed to be not a good thing to take with the thyroid for thyroid medication. I
that's
guess
the
I can
same,
ask I have a primary appointment,
mhm.
so maybe I should ask about that.
It would, I can tell you that, are you taking Synthroid or T4
Yes,
or, okay.
Synthroid.
So yeah, Synthroid.
It's probably not it's not high enough probably in there, right? It's not like it's a full supplement of it. It's just added into
Yeah.
that probably.
I mean, I have my own opinions on that. There's usually, here I go. Usually with Synthroid, so Synthroid's inactive thyroid.
Well,
And
actually,
a lot of,
it's
yeah,
levoxyl is what actually, yeah,
levothyroxine. So it's the
yeah.
generic for it. So same thing. And it's the inactive version of thyroid. And the goal is, okay, well, you take the inactive version and let's hope and pray that it converts to the active version. So kind of like my other analogy with total test and free test, kind of similar as T4 and T3. T3 is your active thyroid. And so what I've seen more times than I can humanly count is, that's why, like, when you're talking in my mind, I'm just like, I bet you she's on Synthroid, and I bet you it's not working as well. And I'm not a mind reader. I just know that that's just kind of the cycle. And so
Mhm.
all they do is they either just increase the dose, which that doesn't help because it's not properly converting, because maybe you don't have the micronutrients that you need that are in things like Balance and even the sleep aid to help with that T4 to T3 conversion. So if you're not having it convert properly, and that's not the only reason, but there's three main reasons that T4, like levothyroxine or Synthroid, same thing, is not as effective. And it's one of three things, or two of three things, or all three things: chronic stress, gut health issues, and nutrient deficiencies. So that being said, these are great options for you to use. Even, side note too, like, I don't know, did you say no, I think it was Melissa. There are other options out there, even with your thyroid medication. Armour Thyroid, it's a non-synthetic version of thyroid that has T3 and T4 in it. Is typically something that, again, I'm not a doctor, so not like I could prescribe it to you anyway, but just kind of something to look into. Seen a lot of success with that, and a lot of, health optimization doctors, clinics, functional medicine doctors are big fans of it because it is more natural and it's also got a little bit of T3 in there. So that it helps a little bit there. But you got to make sure that you're having those nutrients that are in these products to help with that conversion, to help with it, because otherwise you can increase that dose all day and it's not going to do anything. You know what I
What
mean?
was that? What was the one did you suggest?
It's called Armour Thyroid, ARMOUR.
Okay.
Mhm.
I mean, I haven't had my levels of state had years ago they used to be like this. And my medication would be fluctuating, but it's been steady. They haven't changed my medication in years. I mean, I've
Mm.
had this since 2002.
Yep,
So, but I'm going to see a new doctor, so I will definitely bring it up.
for sure. And hopefully, and like, that's the thing, get multiple opinions too.
Yeah.
It definitely is worth continuing to seek out that information, because I hate seeing how it's just kind of like, it's like an assembly line. It's like, you get, all right, Synthroid next, Synthroid, and I'm just like, ugh. Anyway.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hmm? All right, who else has a question, comment, concern? Oh yeah, I saw, and actually I saw the message about the workout energy. So yeah, honestly, if you're taking it before you work out, then take it about 20 minutes before. But because there's no caffeine in it, it's something that if you wanted to take it a little bit later in the day, you still can. It's not going to be the same as like, wanting to avoid taking caffeine or something that's going to keep you stimulated. Um, I will say, if you have sleep issues in general, then in general, even if something's non-stimulant, try and avoid anything that's going to invoke more energy later in the day anyway, so that you can help calm the nervous system down. But yeah, the pre-workout, that's why like it's called energy, but like, and I refer to it as pre-workout because that's what it is. But I try and differentiate between like, it's actually considered a nootropic. If you've heard that term,
Yes.
nootropic. Yeah,
I only
it's
want to do those once a day. Like
yeah.
I would love to replace that with what I'm doing now because I work out with Julie at 11 my time, which is 12 you guys this time. And I would like to,
Mhm.
about 10 o'clock is when I usually typically drink that. And I wanted to see if I could, so I believe only one a day for me
Yeah.
because I like my sleep and I don't have no problem.
Yeah.
That's the thing about me. I don't have no
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, no problem with that. Yeah. You're gonna need it for Julie's workouts, I think.
Yes, I think I seen her drinking it and I was like, I wonder what she's drinking.
Yep. When I don't have any in here, but I did earlier. I have my little styrofoam cup with my little flavors
She
behind me. So,
Ashley saw me drinking. She actually saw me drinking the recovery.
oh,
Okay.
Because the pre-workout I drank before the workout, and then I drink the recovery during. And every supplement that Gentry mentioned today, I personally take those, and I've been taking them for many years. And I'm in my 50s, and I, prior to taking them, did suffer from night sweats, and I was getting uh, heart palpitations, because somebody in here mentioned heart palpitation. I know there's a question in the chat too, Gentry, just so you know.
yeah. Mhm.
And the balance really personally was one that helped me a lot with my night sweats and my heart palpitations. It just, I don't know what it was in there, if it's the vitamin K or the combination of the um, the ingredients that you mentioned that really helped me personally with some of those side effects. I know a lot of you mentioned all these side effects that we get and are experiencing, but once you are sleeping properly, eating healthy, finding a consistency, having that consistency along with proper supplementation, it makes a true impact in
Mhm.
how you deal with balancing your hormones. So I think today was very informative and truly helpful. So and
Yeah.
I'm not
And I'm gonna,
sure if
yeah,
look at that question.
I'll no, thanks for that, Julie. And honestly, it was probably a combination of a couple of them. It's kind of hard to pinpoint, but like they balance and enhance, especially, they can really, you know, silence a lot of the perimenopause type of symptoms as well. So, and I'm going to get to these questions, but before I forget, so I didn't mention recovery today, the intra workout, and it is not because the only reason why is it was hard enough for me to narrow down these. Intra is also great, okay? And someone asked me this the other day because I was like emphasizing these. I'm like, okay, they all have their purpose in different ways, right? But my goal was to try and not like feel like it was just the whole entire shebang, right? But at the same time, they all are great. They all serve a purpose, but intra is also phenomenal. Especially, we didn't talk about hydration as much, but it has hydration factors to it. Many of us, most of us, potentially all of us, are experiencing chronic levels of dehydration for multiple reasons too. We're not as hydrated in general. And that can also add to that allostatic load of stress, that bucket of stress. Um, anyway, so I wanted to make sure that I said that because I didn't want to not show intra love, but um, let me answer this. So if you use a hot pellet, do we need the hormone balance? Like a testosterone, like a TRT, HRT pellet? Okay, I guess, is it TRT pellet? So, okay. How long have you had the pellet? And I'll wait for you to answer and also tell you that the pellet generally consensus on that is that it's very unpredictable. So you may experience like higher testosterone, okay, for 5 years, but haven't had one in a year. Okay. So during that 5 years, maybe you likely experienced like it not being this even keel level of optimal testosterone in hormones. It was more potentially like high and low. Quite frankly, when I was in telemedicine, really every single patient that came to the company I was with was very much so like switching over from pellets. So like if you were to consider ever doing that again, I would probably opt out for another form just because it's not predictable. But to answer that question, whoops, let me make sure I actually answer the question. I guess I'm asking what to take. Yeah, I mean, you on or off HRT, you can take the Enhance, you can take these products. In fact, I'd be interested to see. I would almost guarantee you that someone that did like if you had an HRT pellet and then took Enhance, it would likely help to balance it out. Honestly, I would, based on what I know about Enhance and how that works, and then also how the pellet works, it likely would help. Maybe someone should try that out. How do you suggest taking all the different supplements? Obviously, sleep before bed. Honestly, I'm glad you said that, but I recently had someone who didn't think it was so obvious. They were taking it not before bed. So, no, haha, that's actually a real story. But what about Crush Balance Heat? So my suggestion, so like Nicole said, Heat and Balance can be taken first thing in the morning. Crush you can take between breakfast and lunch. So I'll go over Crush first. Crush, it used to actually be called our Burn PM. It used to be like our non-stimulant fat burner, and it was designed to take at night. The real reality of Crush is it can be taken anytime, and it's really ideally if you experience cravings at certain times, that's the most ideal time for you to take it. And so there is one scenario where, okay, I feel a lot of cravings at night. Take it rather than going to go get food to help balance the blood sugar and help eliminate that because of the adaptogens in there to help bring down the stress, which is going to bring down the cortisol, which is going to bring down the cravings. That's how that works. But ultimately, this is not one of those, like something like thyroid medication. That is something that's probably where you got that from with the ashwagandha. You're just not supposed to take thyroid with like anything. You're supposed to take it by itself and away from food and caffeine. But none of these products are like, oh, you have to take it with or without food. But ideally, like most ideal, take Crush either between meals or on an empty stomach where you can, or when you're experiencing cravings. But if that's not ideal for you, or if you're like, oh shoot, like, well, I'm about to eat, just take it. It's still going to work. It's still going to be good. And then the others, Heat, yep, first thing in the morning. That can be taken without food. I prefer to take it with food myself. And what else? Balance. So interestingly, most of the time when you're taking some sort of like EFA, like essential fatty acid, and it has like vitamin D in there, those are fat soluble vitamins. Well, the way that this was formulated was so that usually you really need to take that with food and especially fats because it helps with the digestion. But the way that this was formulated is it enables you to be able to take it on an empty stomach if you wanted to. But I generally I think it's just a habit. I like to just go ahead and take it with my first meal, and that's just what I do. But yeah. Lots of great information. Thank you. Go help your team with your homework. Awesome. Thank you very much. Total hysterectomy at 42. So can control hormones. Oh, so you can control hormones. I see. I'm guessing that you were saying that in reference to the pellet. Was that a question or more of a statement? Because I think I might have missed that. If you have heart palpitations, so I would maybe avoid Heat just in general. Although compared to many fat burners out there, it's definitely not like I've definitely been a guinea pig and trialed many different supplements because I like to see, okay, well, how does this work and that. There's some fat burners out there that definitely makes you feel like you're going to have a heart attack. That's not how heat is. It's very it can have a stimulating factor to it, but if you have heart palpitations, I'd either consider just taking one capsule or something and bringing down the dose, or definitely taking it with food. Anytime you want to tone down anything like in general that's more of a stimulant, you can eat food with it. If you want more of an effect, you can take it fasted. But in your case, I just generally speaking, if you're on the fence about it, might avoid it. Yeah, like Julie said, she can walk you through these things too. I'm happy to continue answering questions on it, but yeah, that's the great thing about our products though, is definitely can't be said about every company out there, but we don't have any products that I'm like, oh gosh, this one worries me. Like this one has the potential to really cause someone to have an anxiety attack because it's got so much stimulus in there. We really don't have anything like that. The energy is a very clean energy, sustainable energy, no crashes. And heat, I don't know what it is about heat, the combination of those ingredients. I like the energy that I get from that. And I tend to be more sensitive to things that are like stimulating and can cause like higher heart rate and stuff, but I don't get that at all myself from heat. Anyone have any questions else? This has been really fun, and you guys can get fired up to go into Lean by Halloween and have all of the information and knowledge now, and you're going to be thinking about this stuff, I'm sure. And I don't think I mentioned this, but I just remembered. So everyone that does want to take advantage of one of the stacks, we're also going to do a raffle of you guys, and we're going to pull a name out of a hat to have a separate, I would say one-on-one, but really two-on-one call with me and Julie to go more in depth on, some of your questions and kind of more solutioning from there. So we'll be keeping tabs on anyone that does either one of these stacks, and you can win a raffle there, and we'll get on a call with you and do a deep dive with you.
So thank you so much, Gentry. We really appreciate that. So if you didn't hear that, if you guys buy one of these stacks, you'll get put in a raffle to get a one-on-one call with Gentry and myself. So the three of us will meet and you can ask questions. We'll talk privately. That's a pretty amazing opportunity. So you can order directly. You got the links, or you can place your order, or you can schedule a time and I will help you order and answer any questions that you might have and just walk you through if you're having difficulty figuring it all out. I will be reposting this, Lisa. I'll repost this in our tribe. I will repost this in the Facebook group. So you guys can watch it again, or you can go back and to parts that you might have been interested in or want to look back at, review, or you can also share it as well with other people that you think that might find it useful or helpful. Feel free to do that, of course, as well. And a big shout out, a true thank you. Nicole is here from Prestige too, and appreciate. I know you were here in the background taking notes, and I just want to say acknowledgement and recognize you for being here. You're amazing and been awesome support and awesome on that Prestige team. So thank you guys so much. Any final questions before we say one more hormone question from Melissa? Go for it, Melissa.
I was just going to say, I would like to do a one-on-one at some point to talk a little bit more in depth about that as well. Yeah. Because my thyroid has been all over the place, and I'm on 175 micrograms of levothyroxine and
Yeah.
open.
Awesome.
So
Good. When I saw you scheduled a call, so then it'll get you one of those stacks so you
Yeah.
can get. That's
Okay.
awesome. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so we got several calls scheduled, Gentry.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
I think that's great. Okay, you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you to everybody. Great questions, and have a great night. And it was
Thank you
a
guys
lot
so
of
much.
information.
All
Thank
right.
you.
See ya.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you so much, Gentry. Thank you. Can't
course.
thank you enough. This is fantastic.
Of
So
course.
we'd love to have you back on other
Yes.
topics, more information. We invite you back anytime. Okay,
All right,
you're
sounds good.
welcome. We appreciate
Awesome.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.